Hello, everyone. For the 16th Sunday of the year, using the gospel, I call this one Three Meals. Using the gospel, Luke 10, uh, 38 to 42, and the first reading, Genesis 18, 1 to 10. Three meals. One's a very, very old one in the 1800 years before Christ. Another one and the other two are at the time of Christ and even up to today. Three meals. The first one was Abraham and his wife Sarah. And we know that the people of the desert and the laws or the attitude of Yahweh is hospitality. When people come in from the desert, you give them water, you give them food, you give them something to wash their feet or whatever. Hospitality. And so Abraham did. And so three men came by and he calls out to them, "Don't go on, come on in, I'll give you some water and some food." And they say, "Whoa, sure." And they do. So Abraham gets a cup of water and gives it to the three men, apparently. And then he says, "Well, how about some food? Sarah, get in the kitchen and bake some bread. We got three people for a meal." Hmm. Well, guys, how about something more sustenance, meat? Servants, go out and get the choice calf and cut it, cook it, and uh, these guys need something to eat. How hospitable was Abraham? Oh, and also Sarah and the servants. The interesting in that thing is that Abraham and Sarah were old people, were childless, and as they leave, one of the three, the man says, "Coming back here next year, and the next year, Sarah, you're going to have a child, a little boy." Sort of a good story, a nice meal, and a great reward. And then there were two of the disciples of Jesus, his personal friends, Martha and Mary, and they invite Jesus over for a meal. And they go about it. He arrives, and Martha is in the kitchen rattling those pots and pans and getting everything ready. And old Mary, she just plunks herself in front of Jesus and talks about whatever, the kingdom of God or whatever. Well, Martha gets upset. "Jesus, make her help me." And Jesus, all about talking about his mission or whatever he did, just said, "Mary has chosen the better part." Three friends, a wonderful meal, and you see or read what happened. The third meal is the biggest and the best meal of all because it is the meal thrown by Jesus, his last supper. And we don't know exactly how many people were at that Last Supper. We do know that the apostles were at the Last Supper. You know, and you have pictures of the apostles and sometimes a dog by the table and all kinds of wild things. But we have no idea exactly how many people, but we do know that all the apostles were there. And Jesus gives a Last Supper that sort of lasts forever. Hmm, let's look at that. You know, at the end of the meal, Jesus takes some of that matzah, that bread, and he said, "Here, take and eat this. This is my body." And he takes a cup of wine and then he says, "Here, take and drink this. This is my blood. I'm giving you my body and blood." And so he begins his passion, death, and resurrection. But the key to that was that uh, he did it for everybody in the history of the world. It's a hell of a meal. or the history of the world when he said, "Do this in remembrance of me." So that when you eat this piece of bread or matzah, or when you drink out of this cup, you have me in you and you in me. Communion. And it wasn't just for those 12 or all of them, but it's for everyone all over. And this is the heart of our religion. To celebrate that meal at that table of the Last Supper in 2022. And it really is an invitation to all for what he did. And he says, do this in remembrance of me. I find it interesting that you have Abraham and Sarah inviting the three out of the desert into their home and what they did. And how intimate and personal two people can be, Martha and Mary, with Jesus and what they did with him. But I think one of the interesting things in today's world is we're supposed to be Catholic, the universal, all. Yeah, that's what we preach. That's what we teach. And that's what we're all about. But keep in mind, Jesus invited them all, including Judas. You ever think of that? Including Judas. That's a powerful sign. Judas was there. Judas received. Then Judas did his thing. Isn't it interesting in today's world, in our religion, we have a Pope, Francis, who tells our president, go to communion. Isn't it interesting in our world, we have a bishop on the West Coast who says to the president, don't go to communion. And the bottom line, baby, is Jesus Christ came, suffered, died, rose again, came and did the Last Supper, and he did all of that for all people at all times, including our president, or including your next door neighbor, or more intimately, like Martha and Mary, and for all your friends. To me, that's powerful. That's the most powerful meal ever in the history of the planet. Abraham and Sarah were open to all people coming by. Martha and Mary, the disciples, were open to Jesus when he came by. And Jesus invites us to love all, not just your friends, not just your good neighbors, but all neighbors, all people. What about, do you think your president ought to go to communion? All. Have a good day.